I'm Morgan, and today I want to give my honest thoughts and opinions on Neopets' press release from June 17th, 2024, which is also known as the 17th day of relaxing year 26. And I want to start off by saying that I have been playing Neopets since I was 8 years old, and my current account is from when I was 9. So I am a long-term player of the site, and I have stuck through the site through thick and thin, I'd say, as the saying goes. And I am autistic, so I can speak from experience when I'm talking about disability, and also, like, I'm bisexual, so I feel like I am qualified to give my opinions on some of the things addressed in this press release. First of all, I wanted to talk about some of the changes already happening. New customizable items, including diverse hairstyles and representation items such as pride and accessibility customization options. I'm like, I have mixed thoughts on this because as a longtime player, I'm like, can you please fix the site? A lot of this site is Flash-based, and so people are having to run emulators to make things like classic Neo Homes work. Like, can you please just focus on fixing the site instead of coming out with new wearables? Please, I am begging you, fix some of these older elements of the site. Oh gosh, and also, like, people have been asking for ages and ages, can you please bring back KeyQuest? Like, there's just so many little things on the site that could use improvement rather than new customization items. But at the same time, it's like, yes, I do like the idea of having diverse hairstyle options and more customization options, but can you please make these like Neopoint items and not Neocash items so that people can actually buy them with the in-game currency instead of having to spend real life money on these things? And I always have like really mixed thoughts when Neopets does anything related to pride, because for the longest time they were extremely strict on like no mentions of romance on the site, like at all. Like they've always been very stringent about that on the Neo boards and the Neopian Times. And so it's weird for me to see them do a complete and total 180 and be like, and I put this, the site went from like no mentions of romance at all to like now we can dress our pets up with pride themed items. And so I always like, I don't really feel comfortable with the fact that it's like they just went a complete 180. Like I am bisexual. Like I like how do I put this? I do like having the option to essentially dress up my pets with pride stuff if I want to, but at the same time, it's like the site went a complete 180. And so I still feel a little bit like weird about that. Insensitive terms and outdated lore have been systematically removed from site descriptions while addressing underrepresentation and fostering inclusivity, developing new lore. And it's like, I do like that there's a focus on lore. Like, yes, please, let's focus on the lore. But at the same time, it's like, does this mean you're removing the ski lodge on Terra Mountain? Like, the part of the fun of Neopets was the fact that there were a lot of like partially erased features from stuff like in the very early 2000s. Like, it was fun for me as a kid stumbling upon like the ski lodge mystery. Like, there's a lot of outdated stuff. Like, there is some older stuff on the site that's like really violent and stuff that it's like just wasn't fully scrubbed from the site. So I'm wondering if they're referring to like the ski lodge mystery, sacrificers, stuff like that. And I think they might also be referring to the Tale of Woe plot, because for a long time, like the Tale of Woe plot originally had like gypsies in it, but then they renamed it after a lot of backlash to like the Wanderer Camp or something like that. So I'm wondering if they're specifically referring to that. Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like Neopets has always been very, like they've tried, okay, let me rephrase that. Neopets in the very, very early days when I was like an infant, so before I was on the site, I think it was originally branded for college students. By the time that I started playing, it had kind of become very family friendly. Like they really tried to like scrub the site and make it very family friendly. And so I understand being like, let's try and make this very family friendly, not have anything objectionable that a parent would object to their 5-year-old seeing, like, because that has been the branding of the site for a long time. So I understand being like, hey, maybe we shouldn't include words that are racial slurs in certain countries. So I understand being like wanting to rename certain things if they might be considered offensive. I remember my mom got really upset when I was a kid about, I think it was like the Zuki pirate wench item, because apparently wench is like a slur or something to describe sex workers. I don't know, apparently it was inappropriate, but it's like, I think it's also just a generic term for young women in like British culture or something. And so it made sense that there would be an item with that because it had a different meaning in like British vernacular than it does in American vernacular. And I really hope that they don't try and Americanize things. Like part of Neopets' like vibe has always been that it's kind of British. And so I hope that they don't start like trying to Americanize things. I hope that they continue to stick with British spellings of things. And like, oh, another thing that I wanted to bring up is pasties have a very different meaning in American English than British English. So I wonder if they're going to try, like, I wonder if they're ever going to try and rename something like that. Character updates include the library fairy who now okay, this is one that absolutely pisses me off. Okay. Include the library fairy who now utilizes specialized crutches during trips around Neopia and a wheelchair while in her library. And I'm just like, this is not how you do disability representation. She's a fairy. She can fly. Like, how do I put this? As someone with an invisible disability, I am so sick and tired. Okay, sorry, just so frustrated. I know sick and tired isn't like the right inclusive language, but I'm just so frustrated with disability representation always being something visible. Like always being like, oh, if we want to represent disability, let's just create a character in a wheelchair. And it's like, yes, there are people who rely on mobility aids, but that's not the vast, like all of people with disabilities. That is not all people with disabilities. And so like I dislike when disability representation is always just like, let's jump to create someone in a wheelchair. Let's put a character in a wheelchair. And also I'm just like, this is such a bad example of how to do disability representation. Because again, she's a fairy, she can fly. So it's like she's not, if she has an issue where her legs or something to do with walking doesn't work for that character, then it's like, well, the character isn't really hindered in their ability to participate in society because they can still just fly everywhere. A better example of disability representation done right is the Grey Fairy. I believe her name is Balia, because she's a fairy whose wings don't work, who has these tattered wings, so she can't fly. And as a fairy, being able to fly is unless you're a water fairy, it's an extremely important part of your ability to navigate Neopia, because fairyland used to be in the sky. You really needed to be able to fly to be a fairy. And so I really loved Balia because even though, like, yes, humans don't have wings, as a fairy with someone whose wings didn't work, she was disabled. She is a disabled character, a really well-written disabled character. I love Balia. And I love, too, how it's like she doesn't have her magic. Whereas most of the fairies, they have magic. Balia doesn't have magic. And so I love that, and that it's a subtle inclusion of just invisible disabilities. The fact that not all disabilities are visible. So I really think that Balia, or the Grey Fairy, is an example of disability inclusion done right. And I feel like just changing an existing character to give her mobility aids when she could just fly everywhere anyway, like that isn't really good representation. But I would say, like, there are people in real life who end up utilizing mobility aids but don't always need them. Like, there are sometimes people who will need crutches someday due to like chronic pain issues but might be able to get away with not using them other days. And so I do get that there are people like that, but I just hate when companies always just jump to, let's use like a wheelchair as disability representation. Like, I'm just saying, there are a lot of disabilities out there that are invisible disabilities. So that's why I think Balia is a much better example of disability representation. And I wish that they'd expand upon Balia, because I feel like Balia is an excellent example of disability representation. Okay, new characters such as one of the social media mascots have been introduced with features like hearing aids, enhancing representation across Neopia and enriching its vibrant world. And it's like, again, it feels like they're just jumping towards, let's choose only visible disabilities. And it's like, I do think that like, hey, having characters with hearing aids, that typically makes sense. Like, I think that can be very, like, I think that can be helpful. But it's also like the lore of Neopets kind of doesn't necessarily make sense with sometimes with disability related stuff, because theoretically, there's the Healing Springs fairy who, at least with Neopets, can heal pretty much any ailment your Neopet has. You just have to go to the Healing Springs like every 30 minutes, and then the Healing Springs fairy has a chance to cure your pet of like pneumonia or negitis, things like that. And so it's like, depending on what the cause of the disability is, it may or may not make sense lore-wise. Because if it's like, I don't know, like it just depends. Like, I think there are ways to write disability into Neopets lore that are done really well, like Balia, but it's also like, it kind of feels like, are they trying to write this in a way that makes sense with the lore, or are they just trying to sell more products? Is the way I would say it. It's like, I like disability representation when it's done in a way where it feels like the company actually is caring about the lore, caring about creating characters who are disabled and well written and meaningful and relatable. What I don't like is pandering. I don't like pandering. I don't like it. I really hate this feeling that it's like, I feel like sometimes corporations will end up creating something that's like, oh yes, let's just slap a disability on a character, or let's just slap an LGBTQIA plus identity on a product. Like, let's put a rainbow on something to sell more products, without actually like caring about gay rights, without actually caring about like trans rights, without actually caring about like disability inclusion in society. And I feel like Neopets is kind of going down that route. Like, I'm just, it's like, I like having the option to have, or like to dress up my pet in a hearing aid. Like, if there's an item on the site to put like a hearing aid on my pet, I think that's awesome. Like, I think that is absolutely awesome. But if they're making these things into like NC Mall items, then it's like, you're just trying to capitalize off of people with disabilities, which is sus. Which is kind of like frustrating, especially because oftentimes people with disabilities end up not having a lot of money to begin with, because even if you end up on something like SSI or SSDI, they do not pay very well. And so it's like, I feel kind of like really frustrated when companies almost, when it feels like they're trying to sell things to people with disabilities, when it's like, people with disabilities tend not to have a lot of disposable income, unfortunately. And like autistic people like myself, we tend to be extremely like underemployed compared to the general population, which just like the stats on that, I don't want to try and pull any up right now, but I know it's abysmal. Yeah. And I do feel like I love Pride merch when it's from like small businesses, when it is from small artists. I absolutely love, like, like I remember I got like a little bisexuality like sticker at a Renaissance fair that I just, oh my gosh, I thought it was the cutest thing. But if it's a mega corporation just changing their logo on Twitter to have like a rainbow in it, it's like, this feels like you're trying to capitalize off of gay people without actually caring about doing the legwork to improve gay rights. That sort of thing. And then what's to come for Neopets? Our new protagonist Nyx returns to Neopia after being lost in the void. Alongside her, players will embark on a journey mirroring their own experiences of stepping away from Neopia amid life's demands. And it's like, what? Like, are they not aware of the fact that a bunch of their players have not actually quit the site? Like, yes, I get that they're trying to cater to new players and returning players, but it's like, a lot of us have actually been playing the site consistently and still have the same accounts from years ago. Like, we haven't all stepped away. Only to return with newfound insights and personal growth. Okay. But it still feels like, are you just only trying to cater to returning players? Don't you remember that you have existing players? Can you please fix broken site features? But I do love the idea of a new plot. But I'm just like, can you also fix broken plot? Like, instead of just a new plot, can you fix broken site features, please? The void within represents a pivotal moment for Neopia, symbolizing a rebirth for the beloved brand after years of neglect. And it's like, actually, that is true. That is very true. Like, I would say when Jumpstart took over the site, there were major issues with, so if I remember right, there was some sort of like server move, and that seems to have, I think that was supposedly what caused it, but there was like major lag that made the site like really barely playable for a long period of time. And then there were also issues with like Flash-based things not working right. I can't remember the exact year that happened, but like when Flash kind of stopped being supported, like that caused a lot of issues with the Neopets because so much of the site is Flash-based. And so it's like, yes, the site has been neglected. Promoting positive screen time and well-being to enlighten the Neopian community. And it's like, yes, I like the idea of that. I like the idea of that, positive screen time. And I'm like, that kind of feels like you're selling this to parents, which, like, I get that Neopets is family friendly. And so I like the idea of like keeping it family friendly and keeping things positive. And it's like, okay, I actually kind of like that. It's just promoting positive screen time sounds a little bit like marketing gimmicky. I don't know. Or like it's being used to try and promote an idea to parents is what it sounds like. And well-being to enlighten the Neopian community. The plotline challenges players to confront the mysterious gray curse sweeping across Neopia, draining color and vitality from the world, requiring the collective effort of all who called Neopia home to save it from darkness. Aw, that's kind of sweet. I don't know, I would say the last, like, major plot on Neopets was the Fairy's Ruin. I remember that one, and I am Team Exandra. I am unapologetically Team Exandra. Like, I still kind of don't like the fairies. Okay. Because I don't get why Queen Fiora is apparently like the ruler of Neopia when she's not even a Neopet. She's a fairy. She's not even a Neopet. It's called Neopia. Like, Neopia has a bunch of Neopets. Like, the people who are inhabiting this world are Neopets. Okay, people might not be the right word, but you get what I'm saying. The creatures who are primarily make up the vast majority of the world are Neopets. And so I feel like Neopets should have a government by Neopets for Neopets. And it shouldn't just be, like, we shouldn't be ruled by a fairy. Neopia should be by Neopets for Neopets, not by fairies for Neopets. So, yes, I'm still, like, very strongly Team Exandra over all these years. But yeah, I don't know. That just reminded me of that. Oh, and one thing that I really wish Neopets would fix, the Neopian adventure generator, like, you cannot add images to your adventures. And I really wish that they would fix that. I don't know why that broke, but I would like that fixed. Okay, Neopets fans who have not visited the site in recent years are encouraged to log in ahead of an upcoming website cleanse scheduled for October. Oh, a month before its 25th anniversary. Yeah, because Neopets was founded in 1999. I'm actually rather close in age to Neopets. I don't want to give out too much personal information, but Neopets and I are both 90s babies, so which will see the removal of accounts that have been inactive for more than 10 years. Okay, I like the choice of making that 10 years because you don't want to make it too recently, because they definitely should make it so that people who have logged in and have, like, actually want to continue playing the site don't accidentally get purged. Like, I don't know, if someone's only been active for like 6 months, you don't want to purge someone like that. And Neopets has this issue where you can't have more than one pet with the same name. You can't have more than one person with the same username. And so people are always wanting a purge, so that way you can get, like, sought after names for, like, your account or your pets. So I understand, like, that there definitely probably needs to be another purge. This purge will set the foundation to re-release pet names back into the pound for new owners to love. Okay, I'm confused about that because typically when Neopets has had purges before, it's deleting the pet. Like it deletes the account and then it deletes all the pets on that account. If they're saying releasing pet names back into the pound is different than the create a pet page. So that makes me wonder, like, does that mean that they're abandoning the pets from those accounts into the pound, or are they purging those pets so that you can create a new one with that name on the create a pet page? There's a difference between that. And also, another thing that really irritates me is pound release. Like, why are there still pets stuck in pound release? Like, they should just release all the pets who've been stuck in pound release. That's all I'm saying. Like, I really feel passionately about that because one of my relatives abandoned a Corbat many years ago, back when the pound was down for maintenance, and that pet is still like stuck in pound release. And I've wanted to adopt that pet. Like I've been like, I want that pet if I can ever get it, and it's stuck in pound release. And it's like, I would like that Corbat for my own account because it's like it's a sentimental pet, but I can't because it's stuck in pound release. Okay, timeline. The new Neopets plot will begin to roll out, blah, 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 and go into early 2025. That means it's going to last for at least, like, the next 6 months. Oh, and then they're like, oh, make sure to follow our social media, blah, 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 blah. I get that the site needs to have social media. I get that the site needs to be advertising to new players, but I'm also like, I dislike when they have promotions like the current Neocash giveaway where it's like, go follow us on social media, because it's like, I don't really even use all of the social media that they have listed. And so it's like, annoying. Like, how do I put this? I play Neopets, but I don't use Twitter. And then it has like about Neopets, and it's talking about like the history of Neopets, yada yada yada. And I like Neopets. Yeah. Oh, I like how they're also using, where is it? I think they use the word, okay. Oh, the centerpiece of the Neopets Renaissance, because Neopets has been using the word like Renaissance to describe itself lately, which I think that's a good word. I think that's a good way of describing it, because it did have a period of really not being worked on very well and of disrepair. And so I really love that the site is getting attention. I really loved when they were at Planet Comic-Con, because I gotta meet people who worked for Neopets, and I got to meet other Neopets fans. I don't know, it was just an awesome experience. I love that Neopets is actually having people like put money back into the site. I love that. I absolutely love that. Like, I really think that Neopets needs more love, and I love the focus on like creating new lore. And I love, like, for instance, the quest, like the daily quest, how they included / incorporated Hannah, because Hannah she has been in like Hannah and the Pirate Caves, Hannah and the Ice Caves, Hannah and the Kreludor Caves. Like, this is a character that's been in a lot of their older games, as well as like an entire plot. And so she is intellectual property that is very well loved. And I love too how she's like a strong, empowered female character. And one who isn't like, rah, 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 let's go fight. I love how she's an adventurer who isn't out there just being like some warmonger. She is a character who's like, not necessarily a good character in that she's kind of like a pirate, but she's a chaotic, or like, how do I put this? Yeah, like, she's not necessarily like the most law-abiding character ever, because in the Pirate Caves, I think she was like stealing treasure from other pirates, but she's a fun character. She is a character who shows girls that you can do things, like, you can have aspirations and goals, you can go on adventures, and I really love that. So I love their choice to continue building upon Hannah. Like, I think she's a wonderful character to continue to rebuild upon, and I love their choice to continue fleshing out existing lore and stuff. But I do really think that having a new plot is a great idea. But I do think that I really wish that Neopets would put more effort into just like fixing broken features, fixing the things that are broken about the site, because those are the things that impact everyday players. And I also, like, I also get frustrated when they spend so much time, like, just being like, let's create this new wearable to sell to people. Because it's like, customization isn't everything. Like, I get that they have to sell stuff in order to make money, in order to keep running their business. But it's like, I wish that they'd put more effort into just keeping the site fun, fixing broken features and stuff like that, instead of just putting so much effort into, like, let's sell things, let's sell this, let's sell that. Like, stuff like that. And yeah, I also am like, I don't always necessarily agree with some of their branding choices. Because it's like, for me personally, it's like Neopets has been an escape from the real world. Like, Neopets has been a place that I go to when I don't want to think about all the troubles that are going on in the world. It's been a place that I go to when it's like when I was like 10, 11 years old, and it was a very hard time for me. It's like, I would go to play Neopets. Like, I would play Neopets. I'd be reading the Neopian Times. I'd be escaping from all my troubles in the real world. I'd be using Neopets as a form of escapism. And so I think, to an extent, it's like, if they're trying to bring a bunch of awareness about disability onto the site, it's like, I think they're forgetting the fact that oftentimes people on the site are disabled people who are going onto the site to escape from the ways that their disabilities are impacting them in everyday life. That Neopets, yeah, like, to me, Neopets was always a solace, and that it's like, hey, in the places where I'm being mistreated for being autistic, it's like, I'd go to play Neopets at the end of the day, where it's like, we don't have, like, the site really didn't have very many in-your-face mentions about any of the strife or the problems that I faced in real life. And so it was an escapism for me. It was a way of escaping from all of the troubles that I faced as a disabled child. And so, like, I have very mixed thoughts about the way that they're going about disability inclusion, because I liked Balia, because Balia, her invisible disabilities are ones that it's like, I feel like I can relate to that as someone who is autistic, who has invisible things that are different about me. But I also like the fact that it's not like a direct parallel to something that many people, like, it's not like a direct parallel of like, oh, she has the exact same thing that I have. Because I feel like oftentimes people need escape from the troubles and the turmoils that we face in life. Yeah, and that is something that I should talk about, is the fact that Neopets was absolutely there for me at a time when it's like nothing else was. Neopets was the thing that essentially gave me hope for a future, hope for a better tomorrow. Was like the only thing that I looked forward to was seeing my cat, my tortoiseshell, who is no longer with me, and playing Neopets. And one of the things that's awesome about Neopets is that pets never die. And Neopets, your pets never ever die. And anytime that they have a sickness with them, you can cure them at the Healing Springs. And so you don't ever have to worry about anything bad happening to your pets. They're essentially like immortal. For as long as the site's around, your pets are immortal. And so, and even if you forget to feed them for days on end or weeks on end, nothing happens to them. You can come back, you feed them again, and they'll be happy again. And it's just, I think there's something very soothing about that, something very reassuring. Like that the pets will always be there for you no matter what happens, no matter what atrocious things happen in your everyday life. So I have a very strong attachment to Neopets. I would say that like they are almost a form of like a lifeline for me. Just because like this is one of those things that's extremely hard to talk about. I'm a survivor of seclusion rooms. I am essentially a survivor of the child version of solitary confinement. I'm also a survivor of chelation therapy, which is very, very dangerous. It was used on autistic children. There were some very not nice doctors who tried to convince parents that it would cure autism, but it didn't. It didn't do that, and it could cause... It was not healthy. It was not a good thing to give people. It was a very bad thing. Like, so I am a survivor of just a lot of really awful things that I still kind of associate with like my disability, because these bad things were done to me because essentially because of my disability, even though I know it's not my disability that's the problem, it's the way that society treats people with disabilities that is the problem. But it's like I have a lot of like trauma or like internalized ableism around my disabilities, and so I do feel really hurt, almost real, like seeing Neopets like, which has been my solace throughout like my entire life, trying to include disability representation. Like, that's something that's very hard for me, because I've always seen this as like an escape from the ways that people have treated me badly because of my autism. And so it is weird seeing Neopets try and include a bunch of like one of the things that was really weird to me, like was very kind of like shocking to me, was seeing like they have their noise canceling headphones in the medicine shop, the pharmacy in Neopia Central now sometimes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I use that in everyday life. I love this. This is amazing. Like, that was amazing to me, but it's also like very unnerving, because it's like, I always saw Neopets as like an escape. Like, my Neopets never have to worry about being overwhelmed by sensory sensations, because they never have to worry about that because they're Neopets. So it's very unnerving to... It is very unnerving to see disability representation in Neopets, because I've always used it kind of to escape my disabilities. So yeah, I don't know. That was very... I felt like I trauma dumped there. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this. I feel very unnerved right now. Yeah, just talking about Neopets on the internet is cheaper than therapy. Yeah, I don't know. I love the site though. Like, I love Neopets. It's always been a solace to me. I have my little baby Walkie, who like has grown up alongside me essentially, and I think there's something beautiful and magical about that. And like, if because I don't ever like, that's one of those things that I don't really want to think about, but if someday down the line I heal from my internalized ableism and decide that I want to have children, then I would want them to grow up playing Neopets too. So it's like, I love the idea of Neopets perpetuating on and continuing on into eternity. I think that would be beautiful. Like, I want Neopets to outlive me. So I love that there's attention being put into the site. I just love the fact that Neopets actually has like a press release. It freaking has a press release, which is amazing, because for so long the site has been neglected. So I have mixed thoughts, but in some ways I'm excited. In other ways it's like, I don't think I'm ready to face this, but in some ways I'm excited for it. So yeah, I hope that you are having a happy and safe month of relaxing. Also, a happy and safe Pride Month. Bye.